Hello and welcome back to the podcast You're Better Than That with me, Hannah Miller, and my friend Zoe. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Yeah, well, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm all right. It is good to be back. I love our recording days.
Oh, we haven't had one for a while.
No, I really enjoy it. They're busy and they're tiring and I have to think, but I do really enjoy having the day to do this stuff and I'm really enjoying the feedback we're getting from the podcast. I got such a lovely message this week from someone and it makes it worthwhile. And if you're listening to this and you're doing stuff and you're wondering, are my efforts worthwhile? Are my endeavours worthwhile? It doesn't have to be that, millions of people love something for it to feel worthwhile. Yeah. I mean, we'd love that. Don't get me wrong. Tell your friends, make them listen. But I'm really enjoying this process. I'm growing, we're growing, and people are finding it useful. And that's all we can ask for.
Yeah. That was the reason why you wanted to do it.
Absolutely. Now, today's episode is going out. This episode is going out the day before our snap general election.
Yeah.
And so we thought it would be good to talk about engaging with politics. Don't worry, this isn't going to be a manifesto politics, session, but how do we know what to do? How do we do something rather than nothing? How do we deal with people feeling different that we love? How do we engage in sort of these kind of matters? And so we thought we'd have a bit of a discussion about that today.
Yes.
And maybe if there's some people listening out there who have thought they're probably not going to vote, maybe they'll listen to this and have a bit of a rethink.
Yeah. And when we were planning this, you said that overall you felt that this was about using your voice and you wanted to encourage people to use their voice.
Absolutely.
And it matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, in fact, we could just start there, really, that I'm sure lots of you have heard this, but, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about not voting, I just want to encourage you to vote, to use your voice. We can talk about using your voice more widely in a minute, but we live in a country where we have the opportunity to vote. And I know this sounds very pious, but, my husband visits countries regularly with his work where people don't have the democratic right to vote, or for whatever reason that is hampered. And we live in a country for all its ills and all its challenges where I have the right to feel differently to you, and I have the right to go and put my thoughts down on paper. And as I said to my son who's 18, I said, even if you don't want to vote for anybody, you can go and you can scribble on your ballot paper. And I know that sounds a bit pathetic, but you are exercising your right to say, I haven't chosen anybody that I want to represent me, but I have a right to share my opinion. And when we don't share our opinion, we are losing our voice when we've been given one.
Yeah.
And I recognise that the big challenge with this is we feel like one tiny person, and there's 60 odd million of us, I don't know, I lose track, but there's not that many who can vote. But we can feel that, what is the point of my little thought here? And again, as twee as it sounds, one little thought and one opinion and one voice adds to others and makes a difference. And if every single one of us thought that our bit didn't count, then we would never, ever see change ever in anything. Forget politics, anything. Yeah. You listening to this, your contribution matters, your opinion matters, your voice matters, your perspective matters, and it's missing when you don't bring it. So exercise your democratic exercise your democratic right in some way or another, and if you're registered to vote, vote.
Yes. Let's get into what you're
let's get into it. So the first thing I was thinking about is manifestos. So again, at the time of recording, the political parties have brought out their manifesto. And I love the word manifesto. I think it's a great word. And a manifesto is a public declaration of your policy, of your aims. It's declaring publicly your intentions, your motives, your views, so that the people who are reading it know what you intend to do. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking, first, what would my manifesto be? I don't mean all my political views. And I saw that Count Binface, he's the guy who is like this slight joker who runs, he's actually running as a candidate for somewhere, but he put out a manifesto to be the London mayor, and he put some brilliant things down. He said that Thames water bosses should be made to take a dip in the Thames to see how they like it. He said that speakerphones are to be banned on public transport, with offenders forced to watch a box set of The One Show. He said that loud snacks would be banned in theatres. Yes, I agree with that.
Yes.
He said that NHS waiting times would be improved by making GP surgeries hold music less appealing. That's another appalling, not appealing. And he said no shop will be allowed to sell a croissant for more than £1.10.
Yes.
These are great things. These are great benefits. I mean, I can get behind everything in there. What else have we got here? One more. Oh, this is good. All government ministers' pay, including the mayor's, to be tied to that of nurses for the next 100 years. Wow. So they get paid what nurses get paid. I liked all of those things, as silly as they were. And then I thought, well, what would be my manifesto if I was going to write one? And you can think, while I do mine, you can think about yours. So work one was easy. My work one is to help people to live with purpose and to play to their strengths and to make it available for everyone. Nice. Okay, that's easy. On like a personal level, to love my family, to love my children, to love my friends with all my heart. And on a faith level, it is simply to follow Jesus all my life. So those were very easy. But then I also thought strong punishments for people who leave things on the stairs and walk past things on the stairs and don't take them.
Every mother is putting that on their manifesto.
I put things on there's no one more hopeful than a mother who puts things on the stairs.
That is true.
They're just ignored for eternity. Absolutely. And I even saw those baskets you can have for putting on your stage, like stair-shaped baskets. And I thought, well, that's just like decorating my disappointment, because nobody's going to definitely move them if they're in a basket.
Because it looks nice.
I also thought that people who chewed loudly should be made to listen to the sounds they make for 30 minutes in headphones. Companies should be forced to use real humans on helplines. No bots allowed. Yes. And actually then would be forced to have a helpline that you can phone at all times. And if this is a more serious one, we should all have to spend time with people who are from a different walk of life to us.
That's a really good one.
Because I think that could solve a lot.
Yeah.
Which kind of takes us a bit further into where we're going today. And two more serious ones about if I was actually in politics. I think there should be something that whenever someone talks in Parliament or gives an interview, goes on Question Time, puts something on social media, we should all go, right, stop, and then it should be fact-checked.
Yes.
And then if it's not true, they have to do a forfeit.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that should be for anything put on social media.
Absolutely. Because this is actually a really big problem, and why people are disengaging, because post-truth, we hear this word, post-truth. And we're in a time where actually it's scary the amount of post-truth that there is, i.e. post-truth meaning lying or exaggerating. There's so many things that come through that if you haven't got your wits about you, you are going to think they're true. And this is not about one side or another. This is just about particularly the extremes, actually. The extremes of either end are inclined towards just not telling the truth. Yeah. And it's propaganda, essentially.
It really is. I lived in America for just under a year.
Yes, you did.
And I remember specifically Googling things about a specific person in politics. And
we can all probably guess who that might be, but we'll leave that to people's imaginations.
And I was in Northern California, which was swayed heavily to one side. But the things that came up were completely different to the things that would come up if you Googled the exact same thing here. Yeah. And that was the moment that I realised we're all just being fed what we want to hear. Yeah. And it's important that we fact check and we actually do the deeper research, because it is propaganda, like you said.
And there are fact checking things out there, so we don't have to completely lose hope. There are places where facts are checked. The BBC is a fact checking service, and they do that. There are community notes that are being added on Twitter. There are things where you can find out a bit more, but you do have to do your work and your research. And I think there's something for all of us to think, I need to just investigate this rather than just absorb it.
Yeah.
You know, we wouldn't do that in other scenarios. So we need to just think, is this definitely true? And how do I find that out? You know, there's AI as well, where videos are not even true.
Yeah.
There was a video that did the rounds. I think there's been ones for both Rishi and Keir, but the one I remember is there was a video of Keir Starmer allegedly losing his temper at somebody for dropping an iPad and smashing it. And what was so clever about that is they took something that is really realistic, a small thing. So they didn't make it like he, you know, had an outraging temper about something that wouldn't be obvious. They took something that really could have happened, and it was a total fabrication. And like everybody's come out and said, you know, that wasn't being done by other parties, just to be clear, but it was out on the internet, and that was just totally untrue.
It's really scary,
I know.
actually.
It's really scary, and it makes people nervous around, you know, having confidence in anything. And I don't think we need to go there. I think we just need to do our homework. We need to do our research, and we need to think, actually, some of the things at the extreme are probably not true. And how do we bring it back to that place? So I think that's something I would. And my last thing is, I think people should be made to say proper sorries.
Elaborate. What do you mean?
Well, and I think this could be in all of life, not just politics. I think politicians should just say sorry when they get it wrong. I know why they don't. I get why they don't. All the like PR and all the rest of it. But I think they should properly say sorry, and the words sorry or apologise. I think misspoke is so pathetic. It's like when people say my bad. It's like I'm not really owning responsibility. You know, it's not a misspeak to actually say sentences, and then I'm misspeaking if I use the wrong word. You know, that is an accident. If I say like long sentences and then go, oh, I misspoke. No, you didn't. You meant what you said. You just now realise you shouldn't have thought it. And then we should give people second chances.
Yeah.
So if people are sorry, we should let them try again. We don't have to like cancel someone forever. Obviously, there are, just for people listening, I'm not talking about people doing really awful things. Hopefully people can use their common sense here in what I'm saying. I'm talking about when we make a mistake, we own it. And if we could get back to that and telling the truth, maybe we could have a different standard in public life.
Yeah.
There has been a complete like dismissal, and we've pushed aside standards in public life, and I think the vast majority of us do care about that. And public life, I think we could argue that's all of us. You know, we all have a role to play. When I was a teacher, you know, we were told, and it was true, you're always a teacher. You are a teacher on the weekend. You are a teacher in the school holidays, and you are representing office. And perhaps if we could all think a little bit differently about how am I representing myself, that would be no bad thing. And some people will have the argument, well, it doesn't matter what someone's personality or character is like, it's what they do that matters. And I'm not convinced of that. I think there's something about who somebody is that does matter.
Yeah. This, I don't want to jump ahead, but I feel like it does lead nicely into when people think differently. And like what you've just said about some people might say this, or even what you've read on your manifesto, there might be someone out there that's like, no, I don't agree with any of that. And so what would you say, or could you speak to navigating relationships when people think differently, specifically with politics?
I have got the T-shirt for that. I've got a lot of experience. So I mean, that was one of the points I wanted to cover. One was, please do vote in some way, you know, find a way to actually register your vote. The second one, the second point was, you know, what's on your manifesto? And another point was, how do we deal with people feeling differently to us? And there'll be people listening to this, and some of us have quite strongly held views. Some people don't, and they're more fluid. Others of us have more strongly held views. I have done my work on this. Like, I do engage in this space, and I have thought about what I think. So I feel it quite strongly. And I feel everything quite strongly anyway. Like, you know this, if I've read a good book, I think it's amazing. Or if I don't like something, I really don't like it, you know. There's not a lot of grey with me. And I'm learning about that there is a lot more grey in life. But I have had lots and lots and lots of personal experience of people that I love feeling differently to me. And it's no secret that my wider family, not my nucleus family, but my wider family, we have the whole raft of perspective in it. So we have people across the political views, across the Brexit views, both sides of my wider family, actually. We have strong different views. And there's a real tendency, like I find there's part of me that first of all says, how can you think that? Like that is definitely what goes on in my head. I'm like, I don't get how you think that. So when we feel like that, I think what I'm learning to try and do is to have a bit more curiosity around how somebody can think that.
Yeah.
And again, we're not talking about the most extreme views here. Again, I'm hoping people are using their common sense. We're not talking about people who have like, you know, really far right or far left opinions. We're talking about the wide realm of the middle space that there is. How can you think that? And how can I be more curious with that question rather than how can you think that? How have you got there? How did you end up there?
Yeah.
Because if we other everybody, we create enemies, we create lines that people can't cross, and we really do lose a little bit of our humanity. And that goes for all of us. It goes back to my earlier point that we should spend time with people who aren't like us or from our background or from our experiences.
Yeah.
That changes the way we see people when we get proximity.
Definitely. Just going back to when I lived in America, I was in a house actually with 7 other American girls who all thought the same, and I was the only one who thought differently.
Wow.
And initially it was so hard because I went into it like fight mode.
Yeah.
How could you think like that?
Yeah.
And I'm still growing, but by the end of it, it was really healthy for me to actually live with them. And it doesn't mean that people that think differently are wrong or bad. It just allowed me to understand context and how you grew up. Why do you think that way? What has happened in your life that has made you and formed your ways of thinking? And now some of them are like still my really close friends, which I actually really love, that they think so opposite to me, but we can still hold a friendship. Yeah.
And I think having curiosity can give compassion for different perspectives. It doesn't mean we have to agree. And it also doesn't mean we can't defend our perspective or try and help people see differently.
Yeah.
Because I would definitely say I've grown and changed over my life in my views. I don't feel the same about everything that I probably did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Partly because you realise more and more about life is grey.
Yeah.
And there is a lot less that's black and white. And also because we experience life and we experience people. I mean, let's just talk about you and me. We're different generations. Sad to say it, but it's true. We have different colour skin. Yeah. We have parents from very different backgrounds and heritage and experiences. Our schooling is different. Our families are different. And we can have curiosity about that and understand things about each other. And the best thing we can do is to try and understand where someone's coming from.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you have to agree. And what I've found is we also have to use wisdom as to when it's worth having the discussion and when it's not.
Yeah.
And that I don't get right a lot of the time, but I'm really learning. Sometimes people like to play devil's advocate and you can have a great old conversation with them. Sometimes somebody's got very different views. And I think you have to decide, can we disagree agreeably or not? Yeah. And if we can't, we probably shouldn't go there. And if we can, let's do that and see if we move on our opinions at all. Because if we're all so wedded to every view on everything, we're losing any curiosity to grow and change.
Yeah, exactly.
And I will disagree vehemently with things I don't agree with, but can I do that with increasing grace and with increasing sort of respect for somebody else's perspective?
And kindness.
And kindness, exactly. And challenge where there's maybe challenge necessary.
Yeah.
How have you, like, this is a side point, right? But let's just talk about race for a moment. When somebody has shown a lack of either understanding of the issues or even worse than that, they have exhibited not just a lack of understanding, but they've exhibited what you would potentially call racism. How would you handle that when we're talking about something that we're not just talking about, oh, I would tax or I would not tax? You know, we're talking about something that's much more deep. How do you handle dealing with that kind of difference? Because that's moving into a different realm. Do you challenge? Do you walk? You know, what have you tried to do?
all of the above.
Yeah.
I think I'm definitely, like, I don't even know if I'm the right person to ask this, but I think
you are, because you've got lived experience.
Yeah. I think I lean on the side of challenge. I'm not afraid of having a conversation healthily.
Yeah.
But I also can tell if someone's willing to learn and willing to be wrong. And if they're not, then I will walk away. Because I'm like, this isn't going to end
well for anyone.
Exactly. And so I think, coming from a point of view of, let me teach you, and like, have you seen this perspective? And if you don't want to see, then I will disengage. And I don't know if that is right. But that's just how I currently would operate.
Because we can't get into every battle and around everything with everyone. And I think sometimes we can get combative about things we feel really strongly about. Now, that is a slightly different issue because there's no grey area here. But, and like you said, there's a difference between somebody doing something that maybe is open to understanding. Actually, you could say that differently.
And
go on.
Well, I remember in COVID times as well, when George Floyd was murdered, and I was like probably young and naive, but would spend time like arguing with people on Facebook, people who just awful, like racist views. And my mum just said to me, so, like, they're not going to change their mind. No. Like, protect your mental health.
Definitely not like that.
Exactly. Protect your mental health and leave it. And it was so freeing because I was like, I'm not going to change my mind. A, with this person's thinking. B, on Facebook chat. Like, it's just not going to work.
No.
And so, yeah.
And I think there is a lesson in that's wide, which is we've got to be wise about when is this going to be healthy and an interesting conversation, and when is it just going to leave us quite broken. And the more we can do it healthily, the more we all grow, because we start to realise that most things, there's ways of seeing perspective. And I've mentioned it before, it's one of my favourite things about The Rest is Politics, which is one of my favourite podcasts, is that they really do try to model disagreeing agreeably. And if we can learn to do that, rather than othering people, we can do a better job of finding ways to collaborate and work together. And I also definitely think there's something about this proximity to people that aren't like us that's so important. Or by that, I mean, they're just life experiences have been different. And it can be as simple as, and my dad won't mind me saying that before I became a teacher, for example, he probably had some classic views on teaching that used to be peddled a lot, which is, oh, you get great holidays, you finish at 3. And there's also an old-fashioned thing around if you can, you do, and if you can't, you teach. And people used to say that all the time, and it's really, really rude and hurtful to the teaching profession. But me being a teacher meant that my dad was up close and personal with a teacher and became an advocate for teachers. You have he'd say to people, you have no idea how hard they work. And of course, in every societal group, every industry, you're going to have people who don't work hard. But his experience was they're so committed, they have so much they have to do, the hours they put in, and that has changed his perspectives. I'm up close and personal with loads of GPs, so I recognise that some of the narrative we hear around them is just so incorrect in the vast majority of cases. And so we can advocate for people because we have proximity. And I think a couple quick more points is just protect what you engage with, which kind of comes off the point of what you've said. I've said this so many times, I do listen to a lot of news. I do take in a lot of information. I'm wired that way. But I'm making better choices about when I choose to do that. And I'm balancing it with A, is it true? And B, is this the whole picture? There was a book my son Jude read last summer, I think it's called Factfulness. And it's this idea around having the full fact, not just the truth, but also actually where have we seen progress and where can we actually celebrate? For every statistic around poverty and disease, we have some amazing statistics to know about the difference that's happened, that the difference that nets have made in malaria to so many people, having mosquito nets, the difference that running water has made to many people, the difference that antibiotics have made to you and me. There is so much that we need to understand, as well as we look at all the progress we still need to make. I think that's one more point I'd want to make is, celebrate the progress we're making and just protect how much of the negativity that you actually engage with. Because if I listened to news that said Birmingham is an unsafe place to live, don't live in Birmingham, it's full of criminals, the roads are potholes, there's mess everywhere, people hit each other and it's high crime. I'm making this up, but if I saw that all the time, what's going to happen about the way I view my city? I'm going to see the dirt. I'm going to see the pothole. I'm going to see the litter. I'm going to see the person who might be a criminal. I'm going to look at that group of lads and think they're up to no good when they might be up to nothing at all, because my brain will be programmed to see it that way because of everything I've engaged with. But what about if I look at good news about Birmingham as well, and all the incredible initiatives that are going on, and the amazing Commonwealth Games we had, and fantastic things like Urban Devotion and Love Brum and other wonderful initiatives in this city. And I look at that and I think, look at all that amazing stuff. It's the same city. Yeah. And I think we have to be careful how much we listen to, and we balance the struggle with the progress, because we're just going to lose heart. And I think where I'll leave this is your voice matters, your opinion matters. You know, if you're listening to this on the day before the election and you're not sure how to vote, go and use one of those online things to help you find a party that you most align with. Somebody once said to me, you're not going to find everything, you know, like a family or any other group. You don't have everything in common with everybody in it. You just find where you're most aligned and start there. Start there. You don't have to agree with everything, but you can start there. And also realise that none of this is going to be the ultimate answer. It's just part of the picture. It's part of the systems we have in place. I saw on the news last week that it was the 9th anniversary of when Jo Cox, who was an MP, lost her life. She was assassinated, a British MP. And she said the phrase that has been her legacy. Gosh, I feel a bit emotional. There's a lot going on at the moment. There is far more that we have in common than that which divides us. And I think I want to leave it with her words that we do have so much more in common than that which divides us. And if we can find those places, we can find proximity, we can find care, we can find respect for people from wherever they're from in the world, whatever their perspectives are. And that is Jo Cox's legacy, this more in common idea. And as we head into this election, let's try and defend our perspectives, defend our beliefs, defend our right to have opinions on things, but do so in a way that makes room for people and makes room for us to be in this together.
Yeah.